these creators, these directors, these writers, they have a reverence and an immense love for this property. Welcome back, Dungeon Masters, to my review of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, a film that has had radically different receptions depending on whether you're a Dungeons & Dragons player or you're not. So who's gonna like it more? We're gonna discuss it. We follow a charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers as they undertake an epic heist to retrieve a lost relic. But things go dangerously awry when they run afoul of the wrong people. And as a frame of reference, I'm not a Dungeons & Dragons player. I have never gotten into tabletop role-playing games of any kind. I am, however, a huge fan of high fantasy. It is my favorite genre in storytelling, books, TV, video game, movies, comics, you name it. So going into this film, I really didn't know what to expect. For better or worse, this is my first quote-unquote full exposure into what Dungeons & Dragons is. Coming from the directors of Game Night, who are also the directors of Vacation 2015. And we heard all sorts of good things about what this film was. There was a little bit of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, a little bit of Princess Bride, a little bit of Men in Tights. And I gotta tell you, the trailers did not do this film any favors. I did not go into this film very confident. It didn't look like anything special. And this, to me, is a perfect balance between parodying what you're bringing to life in a film, but also celebrating it, embracing the ridiculousness. It takes the tropes, the rules, the archetypes of characters from Dungeons & Dragons, and instead of grounding them, it puts them in this hilarious, heightened reality where everyone's personalities are allowed to be fleshed out and to bounce off of one another. I genuinely did not expect to have this much fun with this film. Again, I don't play Dungeons & Dragons. The directors have got a 50-50 track record, but it fully embraces and just relishes having fun with such a creative idea based on a game that allows for such liberty and for ideas to flourish back and forth. And that's what it feels like. It feels the characters are having fun, feels the actors are having fun. This film is a hoot to watch. It feels like it took all the best lessons from send-up celebrations of genres of films, of fairy tales like the Shrek franchise, or like what Scream does for horror. This does for high fantasy, while having familiar archetypes that become their own thing, that have forged their own path. It took all the best lessons from all those films and took even some archetypes and some lessons from the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy or even the Suicide Squad. Hell, even Vox Machina, a show I love. And this isn't quite as good, it isn't quite as funny, it isn't quite as emotional or compelling, it isn't quite as raunchy. This film does not go for raunchy, but what it promises to do, what it commits to doing, it does quite well. I would be lying if I said I know exactly what comes from actual Dungeons & Dragons or what was created specifically for this film, but what is clear watching as the story unfolds, watching all the jokes, all the self-awareness, the tonal balance, the character archetypes, is that these creators, these directors, these writers, they have a reverence and an immense love for this property. Not only what inherently comes with it, but the fun of playing this game, the fun of the freedom that you have at playing it, at creating your own stories, because all these characters feel like they come in from their own little worlds within this larger kingdom, and you get to see several locations brought to life. You get to explore a ton of the lore that, again, these creators clearly understand. And even though I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, it is immensely fun to see someone who does so much and they're bringing it to screen and are giving it to people like me, as well as the people who already love this property and love having fun with their friends as they make up these quests and journeys and go along them together. But what really cements it is these characters and how they really play with the expectations that come with the genre, with these archetypes, how they twist it around and tweak it to make up a new thing, really making you feel how fun this can be. That's the key word here. It's fun, it's creative. And certainly as a film, it can feel familiar in its beats, but when you look at what a Dungeons and Dragons film could be, what a high fantasy with knights and bards and brutish warriors with creatures could be, this ticks all the boxes. You put a ragtag group of strong, distinct characters together, and honestly, hilarity ensues. You got all the charisma and charm from well-known actors such as Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Hugh Grant, and you just allow them to have fun as these characters. Where the film structurally plays out in the exact kind of way you expect, the film is also smart enough to have fun with it. Yes, we're doing this, and that's familiar, that's almost generic, but we point out the ridiculousness. From the beginning, this film, with its tone and with the way it's keenly winking at the camera with its sense of self-awareness, you know exactly what kind of film you're in for, and it's a ton of fun. You have slapstick, you have quips, you have quirks of the characters that are allowed to give us some funny moments, but then also highlight their inherent character flaws and why they work so well together as a team, why they're somewhat broken inside, and how being together can somewhat help or even fix that brokenness. Everyone does such a great job. Everyone is so immensely aware of exactly what kind of film they're in. Whether you're talking about Chris Pine, who's just having a hoot with this character, it feels very much like they plucked this character from Into the Woods and they just put him in this film. Michelle Rodriguez is hilarious. She gives you all the brutality in her action sequences, even though this film isn't rated R, but she kicks all the ass. And yet, it's her comedic timing that really stands out to me in this. On top of that, you just have them traveling around from place to place, going on mini quests to accomplish a bigger quest. And that's exactly what I assume and have been told playing Dungeons and Dragons feels like. It's you having fun, bouncing back and forth with your friends with ideas on how to accomplish certain things. It's this. This is that movie. And structurally, overall, it's a heist film. It's a high fantasy in terms of genre, a comedy in terms of tone, a self-aware comedy in terms of tone, and a heist film. So it has all these different elements that don't necessarily go together. We haven't even necessarily see them all together, and it just works. It feels like a gamble, like a roll of the dice, and they got a good number. They nailed the tone of this film. They nailed the characters. Hugh Grant's villainous presence is a great balance of being charming, but also demented and even threatening, all at the same time. There's big explanation of lore that doesn't feel tedious, doesn't feel like a chore, but immediately injects itself in important manners into the story. And there's also some great fight sequences. There's some great effects. And the way the film finds creative ways to have all these mini quests after mini quests to accomplish the greater goal and manages to have them all feel different, when one will be absolutely ridiculous and the next one will feed a little bit into the character and the other one will be action packed, but all of them have immense fun with like these fantasy tropes where you have to go into a cemetery and wake people up, but you only have 5 questions. You cannot make mistakes. And the other, you're in an actual dungeon searching for something, and a dragon comes out, but it's an immensely fat dragon who is equally threatening, but also really freaking cute. But above the genre, the tone mixing, high fantasy tropes, why this film works is because of the characters. It's because of this alliance where it's telling a story about broken people who are all alone becoming a broken family. It's a story that actually has a really sweet heart and tells the story of understanding your true potential and really realize the people that are there for you and that trust you and genuinely believe within you, even through their character flaws, even through their insecurities. And that really surprised me. That really made me invested, genuinely invested and compelled by these characters and their journeys. Not all of it works, not all of it comes together for a 5-star classic. You're not going to get an Oscar nominated film out of this. That is because structurally it can feel a bit repetitive, where we're going on this quest and now we meet this character. Okay, and now this character is going to their backstory and why they're invested in this. All right, let's go into find this other piece. Oh, but to find that thing, we need to go to get this character. Okay, we find this character and here we go. Backstory and how they're invested in this. And there are points in here where you're asking yourself, why did we need this character that much? And certain characters don't stick around for long. Why did we need to learn that backstory? Also, Hugh Grant, he is so good in this that is not nearly enough of him at all. He's in the beginning of the film, he's in the end of the film. And I also found the third act to feel a little bit tacked on. The film in general goes by pretty fast. It's a breeze to get through. But there's one bit of the film where it feels over and they need to tack something on to actually give it a proper conclusion. And it's not too long on its own, but it still feels like a tacked on addition that puts an extra 10 minutes on the whole thing. And so you notice it. Doesn't bother me too much, but you notice it. And personally, I wish it could have been more creative with certain designs. Even our main team of rogues, they all look human, apart from Sophia Lillis, who has deer antlers on her. I wanted to see more creatures. There are great set pieces where we see a person who's a dragon and a humanoid bird and all that, but I wanted more of it. I don't want to see so many humans in it, and I don't know. It was a thing. It's a fantasy nut in me, and so I just wish you could have delved more into the craziness, because this film is having so much fun with it and pointing out so much of the craziness. It would have given them even more opportunities for high hilarity. And this film does have high hilarity. There's a random cameo in here that I never saw coming. This person comes in one scene, never shows up again, but it was just really fun to see. Also, there is a mid-credit scene. It's somewhat of a continuation of a joke from early on in the film. You don't need to stay around for it. It's not a plot thing. It doesn't set up a sequel. But it's a joke that works and fits right at home with the tone of this film. And as I dive into my final thoughts on Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, it is time for the fun part, where you start the conversation about it in the comments below. Are you excited for this film? Are you a Dungeons & Dragons player? And now that I enjoyed this film, should I start getting into Dungeons & Dragons? I feel like that was a bad question to ask, and I'm going to fall into a trap of my own making. Anything and everything down there in the comments below. If you're enjoying this review, there's many more like it right up here. I do reviews, I do rankings, I do theory videos every now and then, so I can't wait to see you there. If you're enjoying this video, there's many more like it on the channel, so if you want to stick around and talk more movies and TV, this is the place to be. Consider clicking that subscribe button, and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is an absolute a marriage between the tone and sardonic humor of Shrek and the ragtag archetype characters of Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a send-up slash celebration of all things high fantasy in a whimsically told, heartfelt story about found family. Hugh Grant, always the charmer, but Michelle Rodriguez steals the show with her physicality and comedic brilliance. I'm giving Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves a B. Thank you so much for watching. I know Dungeons & Dragons fans have been dying for a great movie based on their beloved property, so I hope this satisfies those cravings, and I cannot wait to know what you think about it. Big shout out to my channel members for always supporting the channel. Now back very soon with more videos, so until the next one, love each other and love the movies.